Alright, so this actually is taken after all the work's done, but just as a word of advice, watch the whole video before you start, because I make a lot of corrections and suggestions and revisions as it goes. The last one is don't forget your limit rod or whatever this thing's called. And also, it might not be a bad idea to just make sure you note which hole yours is in. There's going to be some wear wherever it comes out, but wherever it was, so it shouldn't be hard to figure that out, but be sure to put that back. Secondly, if you decide to release this pressure, I didn't, but if you do, be sure you tighten it back, or else your trim definitely will not work, because that's the hydraulic pressure release. Okay, happy viewing. Alright, we're going to work on a trim and tilt motor for a 2000 model Honda or Yamaha. This is a 90 horsepower. Searched YouTube for a solution about how to do this, didn't find much, so I started experimenting, and this is what I've come up with. I've already unfortunately pulled the retainer ring that goes off on here. They make pliers that work great. If you have to get creative, needle nose pliers on the inside of them, use needle nose to span it, and then maybe a little flathead to pry the clip off as you're using the needle nose to span it. So you got this little kind of convenient point where when you're working your trim and tilt from this side, where you can find it, just kind of find the sweet spot going up and down until that'll move, and you may have to take a little something and just kind of get it going, but once you do, that'll slide out, take not necessarily the pressure off of that ram, but make it where you can work on it. For brevity's sake, I'll just kind of talk through what I'm going to do next, and then just go to the finished product. So we'll pull this tensioner, or whatever it is, pull this little guy out. So this is quick and easy. We'll pull this and then the matching one on this side, so that we can access this bolt and this bolt. We'll pull these out. That'll release this assembly. Once this is released, it'll give us enough play where we can get to the third bolt, which is down there. It's a 10 mil. We've got one here and one here as well. That's the only real tricky part. Whenever this comes off, it'll spill a little hydraulic fluid. You can use Yamaha fluid, or most people agree you can use Dexron 2 automatic transmission fluid. So losing light a little quicker than I expected. So as I'm doing this, I'm remembering things that I think assumed too much, maybe. So so this wire that goes to that is usually routed back here, under here, and out the cowling on the other side. These are the two lines that you'll have to undo, green one and blue one. It's the bottom left and the top right. They will actually have a sleeve on them like this black one. I've just already taken them off with some light. So I'm just going to show, so once you get these 3 here and the other 3 on the other side, you'll be able to shift this unit down a little and then forward, and then you can use that 10 mil with a 6-inch extension to get back there on that rear bolt. I've already taken it loose last night, you don't have to worry about pulling it all the way up. You can probably get to it with your fingers, but if you just get it to where it's free, you can wait and pull it out with the motor itself. So we'll pop these other three out, break it loose. Like I said, there will be a little hydraulic fluid that spills, or I forget to mention it. So I learned the hard way that it's probably not the best idea to leave the bolt in the back. So of course this thing is seated with a O-ring, and so I had to kind of pop it loose, and when I did, the bolt fell back down in there. Now thankfully mine fell basically all the way through, and yours probably would too, but if that had not happened, and if it had gotten wedged like back in there somewhere or someplace less accessible, it would have been a nightmare to get. So probably do your best to either use a magnet to get back down there, or maybe you can fit your fingers back in there to get the that third bolt out of the back. Found what I guess was my problem. This is how it sat in there, so of course I couldn't see it, but yeah, previous owners and saltwater didn't do great. So most replacements, most motor replacements apparently have a pretty chintzy O-ring. So I've pulled this one. It's not got any flat spots. It's still got a great edge on it. So I'm just going to clean it up and reuse it. Not saying, but to be thorough, put the O-ring on the motor. And then reinsert it. Require lining that notch up with that the motor receiver, which is not like the easiest thing, but since you've got a little play, shouldn't be altogether impossible. There it goes. As I mentioned, we're going to try to get the rear bolt in with this potentially not great method, but we'll see. If you can just work it around in there, and then patiently get it started. It might just take a few tries, but it's the only way I've found to. It's really the only way I've tried, but it worked. Alright, so I know that like things don't always work for everyone, so as soon as I said this is the only way I've tried, I realized I should try another way. So what I've done here is just went ahead and stuck the bolt in the housing and just use it as a carriage. Since I've already gotten this aligned once, I know that the tooth and the receiver are lined up. So now it very simply just rode in there, and now I can just get my 19 back on it and tighten it up. Super easy, and I think actually that was easier than the first way that I came up with. So probably try that one first. And to save yourself the headache of trying to get on that bolt in the back without the motor moving, go ahead and put at least this front bolt in to keep the motor seated. That way you're not fighting against the motor moving and that bolt coming out. Maybe start with these first two, not tight, because you don't want to screw up the way the threads are trying to line up. You want to have a little bit of play in it, that way you don't cross thread this one in the back, because you can't see it, you can't really feel it. But that's you learning from my mistakes. So yeah, for sure, if you decide to ride that back one in on the housing, go on and throw this one in and this one in before you start trying to get your socket on that back one. It'll keep it from pulling back out of the threads, or position really. A 6-inch extension with a little 3-inch extension on it makes it easier to get to, and I still actually have the motor resting. I didn't have to lift it up again to get to that. Now to tighten it back, I may have to lift the motor up above level. I think last night I said inverted, but it's not inverted, it's just above 90 degrees. How about that? Alright, that's got it. Also, yeah, for sure, you want to make sure that you do this with your fingers. I'm not sure that there's another way, but that way you can feel whether or not you're cross-threading it. And then once it's there, we'll get those 3 snug. Reroute this wire. Just kind of briefly. It'll come through here. And then up through there. And just back where you took it from. Simple enough. Okay. Tried it yet, but just from past experience of trying to thread things through, these 2 wires aren't gonna pass through this cramped engine space that easy, I don't think. So I'm gonna try to make a little bit less agile, maybe, or conflicted point out of this by using the shield or the wrap that came on this to pull up over these guys to kind of just create one tip. Maybe that'll be more agreeable whenever I'm trying to, because I think before I try to thread a wire through it, I'm going to try to, now that I've got this relatively stiff wire with the 2 of these combined, I'm going to try to just push it through and see if I can just get it to pass agreeably. I'll let you know how that works out, but it looks, actually, I doubt you can see it, but just, I mean, I'm not really manipulating it at all, but just pushing. Seems like maybe something's happened, so let's see if we can see it over here anywhere. Yes, I think that's it right there. I need both hands for this, but actually that looks like that might be an easy, super easy way to do that. So yeah, try that. So we got it. That worked super easy. Actually, I had pushed it too far through. I had to back it back out some, but I've got this now. You would do well to kind of maybe take a picture and remember where on this side where your wire was routed. Mine, I'm going to go underneath these cables and then back up through. Super easy. So yeah, but I guess my recommendation would be maybe to take a photograph before you undo all this, just so you know exactly where it was routed. I don't think it's a huge deal, but that way you would be guaranteed to know where it was. This isn't as per step as what it would ideally be, but after I got that routed, I came back and thought about how I would prefer to have this sleeve over these wires as they're going through this casing. So now I'm gonna have to make my way, probably just, I doubt I'll pull the whole thing back through because I like the way that it works so easily. So what I'll probably do is just work this side while holding the 2 wires on this end and just kind of work that sleeve back. Hopefully you can see that. If I pull it to about right there and kind of hold these leads, it gives me a straight line straight out to this this hole, and just having that short kind of 1.5 foot run on a straight line, I can grab the outside of this sleeve with my other hand while holding the wires on the right side. I can kind of work this sleeve and pull the wires away on the other side, and I've got kind of a straight run, and then I can kind of like feed this through and just work it back down. That's the most effective way that I've found to do it in the last few minutes. It goes without saying, but with the shape of the world the way it is and all that, you're going to leave some slack in this. You definitely don't want to pull it up tight. Your motor needs to have play left and right and the trim up and down, so you're going to leave a little bit of slack once you get that worked, and then you're going to just slide it back up into these clamps where it was previously. Alright, now in reverse order of what we did earlier, we'll put this trim and tilt unit back in. Basically, we'll just line up those holes. A little trick is you can kind of use a screwdriver or something down in there, get one hole lined up, or use it to help line up another hole. Just reverse order of everything we just did. We'll put those 6 bolts back in. We'll put this pin back in. And then I guess we'll give it a try. We've already hooked up our lines, our wires, put the boots back on, all that. Yeah, we're close. So basically now it's just the reverse of everything that you undid. Do these 6 bolts first, then the pin, and you're going to want to clean all the old crud out of here, and then use some good outboard grease, some sort of waterproof grease. I think that's Quicksilver. Coat the outside of that pin, maybe a little inside of these bushings, because you want that to definitely be well lubricated. They are copy, but things just come to my head as I'm working. So if you didn't already know about using a screwdriver to line up bolt holes when you're working, the one thing that you need to be pretty aware of is that you don't, so inside there, of course, you can't see them, but down inside there are threads. And so if you get in there and really like get aggressive way down in there, you're going to screw up your threads, and then you're going to have a real mess. So I almost take back what I said about using a screwdriver. Like, if you know how to do it, it'll work. You ideally are using a softer metal. If you have somehow like a brass rod, that would be ideal, or aluminum. But anyway, second things, if you have a pivot point, which we've got 3 bolts in a pivot, like this one is probably going to be the easiest one to get in first, and then we'll just use it kind of as a fulcrum to line up these other 2. It might not work the same for you, but that's just a little hint. Alright, also just use your fingers to start them. Again, with the cross threading, you don't want to cross thread them, and once you get them all kind of started, go to the other side and get the other 3 started. You want to be able to have play to kind of help work the other side in and to help prevent cross threading and all that. I guess I'm trying to make all the assumptions that like someone who's never picked up a wrench is doing this, so all pretty standard issue advice if you've ever worked on anything, but I'm trying to be as thorough as possible. Either so, you've got lock washers on them. You don't want these to necessarily come out, but you don't want them to seize either. So you can put just a little touch of grease on them, just to kind of help prevent seizing. You've got these lock washers on them that'll help keep them from coming out, but I just realized that I didn't mention that a second ago. This is one of those things, it's not like necessarily the best way, but it's a way. I just kind of filed a tabletop, or just flat spots on my needle nose. You don't have to. I didn't whenever I took it off originally, but I had a lot of problem with this ring slipping off, so hopefully now with this way I'll be able to get it to open up a little more agreeably without sliding as bad, and I'll just have less trouble getting the ring back on. Obviously the pliers made for this is the way better way to go, but I don't use them very often, or like at all really, other than this, and so it was easier just to improvise. Transom bolts back in, these 6 bolts back in, retainer back in. We got a little few dollops of grease on these rods, and now let's see if it works. Flips up. Okay, job well done. So, I guess it's to be seen whether or not I need to add a little fluid to replace what came out. I probably will do that just for good measure, but there it is. Best of luck to you. Well, I guess the fortune favors the bold and luck favors the educated, so hopefully this was educational and yours goes well.